I'm Tracy Sabol. Tonight on EWTN News Nightly, Biden family investigation. Lawmakers review a previously undisclosed FBI document, what it has to say about the case. Regulations required. The White House confronts the dangers of artificial intelligence, what President Joe Biden is telling computer companies. Supreme Court fallout, how a recent decision could affect other cases centered on free speech and religious freedom. And hoping against hope. A Polish priest tells us how he keeps the faith in war-torn Ukraine. Watch our report from Rome. These stories and more tonight.
From EWTN, the Global Catholic Network, this is EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you for being with us. Our top story tonight, an unclassified FBI document that Republican Senator Chuck Grassley has been demanding has finally been made public. The document involves an alleged bribery scheme at a time when then Vice President Joe Biden's son Hunter was a board member for a Ukrainian oil company. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales has the latest.
Good evening. In the FBI document, the confidential source said that then Vice President Joe Biden and his son Hunter coerced the CEO of the Ukraine company Burisma to pay them $5 million each in exchange for political influence and to get a Ukraine prosecutor fired. In the FBI document, the confidential source states Burisma CEO Mykola Lubchevsky used several bank accounts to conceal payments to the big guy. It also states Burisma was told to hire some normal U.S. oil and gas advisors because the Bidens have no experience with that business sector. Lubchevsky also claimed he kept text messages and audio recordings to show that he was coerced into paying the Bidens to ensure a Ukrainian prosecutor general who was leading a corruption investigation was fired. Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley tweeted, quote, "You can see for yourself what FBI tried to hide. What did FBI do to investigate serious claims from FBI's own trusted source?" Back in June, President Biden was asked about his involvement in his son's business dealings.
Do you have a response to the congressional Republicans?
Where's the money? I'm joking.
Mr. President,
it's a bunch of malarkey.
This week, 2 IRS whistleblowers testified that investigating agencies were restricted.
It appeared to me, based on what I experienced, that the U.S. Attorney in Delaware in our investigation was constantly hamstrung, limited, and marginalized by DOJ officials as well as other U.S. attorneys. I still think that a special counsel is necessary for this investigation.
Democrats call it a political witch hunt.
Well, after the failed SARS reports, bank records, Form 1023, we can conclude that this Inspector Clouseau-style quest for something that doesn't exist has turned our committee into a theater of the absurd, an exercise in futility and embarrassment.
The Oversight Committee is now talking about drafting an impeachment resolution against President Biden. The move would give them more subpoena power. At the Capitol, Eric Rosales, EWTN News Nightly.
On to the White House now, where an official there tweeted the far-right machine is in overdrive to spread long-disproven lies about President Biden promulgated by congressional Republicans. Meanwhile, a former occupant of the Oval Office has a new trial date set for next spring. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reports. Owen?
Tracy, of course, we're talking about former President Donald Trump, whose legal troubles are mounting. May 20th, 2024, that's when his trial date is set in the case charging him with illegally retaining hundreds of classified documents. Now, a federal judge in Florida setting that date, which is just months before the November 2024 presidential election. Former President Donald Trump headed the trial, May 20th, 2024, a compromise. Prosecutors aimed for December, while defense lawyers wanted it after the 2024 presidential election. Now it won't start until probably well after the Republican nominee is decided, but before that person is officially nominated at the RNC convention. Meanwhile, President Joe Biden meets with high-tech companies at the White House discussing artificial intelligence. Amazon, Google, Meta, Microsoft, OpenAI, and others leading the development of AI technology have agreed to meet a set of safeguards.
Artificial intelligence is going to transform the lives of people around the world. The group here will be critical in shepherding that innovation with responsibility and safety by design to earn the trust of Americans.
Generative AI tools can write convincingly human-like text and churn out fake images and other media. There's also concern about AI's ability to trick people and spread disinformation.
But we must be clear-eyed and vigilant about the threats emerging technologies that can pose, don't have to, but can pose to our democracy and our values.
Meanwhile, Vice President Kamala Harris, once a prosecutor, speaking at a convention in Indiana, says, "I specialized in violent crimes against women and children. It is simply immoral that after someone has survived an act of incredible violence and violation to their body, that they do not get to decide what happens to their body next." While pro-life live action tweets, "Safe abortion doesn't exist. There is no safe way to kill a baby in the womb." Also tonight, the Vatican is pressing ahead with plans to reunite Ukrainian children with their families. Earlier this week, you may recall, Pope Francis's peace envoy, Cardinal Zuppi, met right here at the White House with President Biden, discussing the Vatican's effort to return Ukrainian children from Russia. Now, Russia, they reject the notion that they abducted those children, but tonight we're told they are apparently willing to engage in the process of returning those kids. At the White House, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly.
All right, thank you, Owen. The U.S. has officially declared the detained soldier Travis King in North Korea AWOL. Pentagon spokeswoman Sabrina Singh said the U.S. does not know King's health condition or how he is being treated by North Korean authorities. King is the first known American held in North Korea in almost 5 years. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken spoke about the case today.
With regard to Private King, unfortunately, I don't have any further information to share. We are very concerned, of course, about his well-being. We'd like to know his whereabouts. We've communicated to North Korea seeking that information. I don't have anything more at this point.
Secretary Blinken says that he is concerned based on how North Korea has treated Americans in the past. Well, the Pentagon has announced that the U.S. will be deploying thousands of Marines and additional forces to the Middle East. This comes in response to Iranian attempts to seize commercial shipping vessels. 3 ships and around 2,400 Marines will likely be deployed. Our residents in Greece are evacuating their homes as officials there struggle to get raging wildfires under control. 3 areas of the country, including Attica, Laconia, and the island of Rhodes, have been dealing with these fires. French and Israeli crews are helping to try and douse the flames with water from airplanes. Our world records keep breaking, making this the hottest summer around the globe. Meteorologists report June was the warmest, with July following close behind. Heat advisories and warnings continue throughout the U.S., while Europe is under a heat dome. A recent study shows rising temperatures are causing about $1 billion in U.S. healthcare expenses each summer. While Ukrainian officials say Russian missile strikes have targeted farm storage buildings in the Odessa region. The latest round of attacks left 2 injured and destroyed 100 metric tons of peas and 20 metric tons of barley. The strikes follow 3 consecutive days of attacks on Ukraine and Russia's suspension of the Black Sea grain deal. While the head of the CIA believes Russia may be planning more attacks and will try to blame it on Ukraine.
We see some very concerning signs of the Russians considering the kind of false flag operations that, we highlighted in the run-up to the war as well. In other words, looking at ways in which, they might make attacks against shipping in the Black Sea and then blaming it or trying to blame it on the Ukrainians.
CIA Director Bill Burns also spoke today about the threat from China, saying President Xi is watching Russia's war in Ukraine to evaluate the potential fallout should China attack Taiwan. A recently ordained priest from Poland now works in Ukraine and serves the faithful in the war zone. EWTN Vatican Bureau Chief Andreas Tannhauser spoke to Father Łukasz Orlowski to find out more.
We're here in the guest house where our summer academy, the EWTN Summer Academy, is taking place, and one of the participants is Father Łukasz, who is coming to us from Kiev. He's originally from Poland, but has been working with EWTN in Kiev for the last year, and in May he was ordained a priest. Father Łukasz, thank you so much for being with us. Can you tell us a little bit more about the situation in Kiev right now?
Outside, the situation looks quite calm, quite normal, because the life is going normal. we work, theater works, opera works, so the cultural life is also working. When we look some deeper, we will see that people are constantly stressed because many families are divided. Some of them still are abroad, they cannot go back. Some of men are fighting on the border, and that is why, for example, children are still afraid of whether their father will come back. So first of all, the family is suffering from that war.
You're a young priest, you were just ordained, you work now in a war zone. How does that make you feel?
First of all, I feel that I am needed. First, I'm needed by Christ to proclaim some hope there, especially to those people who sometimes lack this hope. I feel that there is a huge need of hope in homilies, during confessions. I feel that my mission is to give those people hope and show them that Jesus is with them, that they are not alone, even if it is, for example, a wife whose husband has went on a front line, even if this is a child whose father is fighting there. I feel that this is my mission now.
Your mission with EWTN in Kiev, in a war zone, being with the people, giving them hope. Father Lukasz, thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
We have a lot more still to come here on EWTN News Nightly, including a dangerous decision. Maine becomes one of the least restrictive abortion states in the country. We'll tell you just how far this law goes and what it means for healthcare providers. And making waves, another case regarding freedom of speech in private business enters federal court. We have analysis. Thanks for staying with us. Democratic Governor Janet Mills has signed a new abortion bill into law, making Maine one of the least restrictive abortion states in the country. The new law allows abortions at any time if deemed medically necessary by a doctor. The law also removes certain penalties for non-licensed physicians who perform abortions. Lawmakers in Louisiana have outlawed sex change operations for anyone under the age of 18. The new law also prohibits doctors from prescribing drugs to facilitate a sex change, such as puberty blockers. The legislation was vetoed by Governor John Bel Edwards until the state legislature overrode the veto on Tuesday. The bill goes into effect in January. Last month, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of a website designer in the case of 303 Creative LLC versus Elenis. In a 6-3 decision, the justices ruled that the First Amendment prohibited the state of Colorado from forcing the designer to create message with which she disagrees. It is a landmark case that could have far-reaching implications. And here to talk with us about more on this is Jonathan Scruggs, Senior Counsel and Vice President of Litigation Strategy and Center for Conscious Initiatives with Alliance Defending Freedom. Jonathan, great to be with you today. As mentioned, the 303 Creative case truly was landmark. Tell us quickly about the significance of this ruling and how it could impact other cases.
Absolutely. It was a great win for free speech and the First Amendment because at its core, the Supreme Court said the government cannot force people to say things they don't believe. And that applies to all speakers, whether those who believe in marriage between a man and woman or those who disagree. It protects the LGBT artist. It protects the Muslim artist, the Jewish artists. Again, the bottom line is the government can't come in and force people to violate their core convictions and their conscience. And that's good for all Americans.
And Jonathan, I know the ADF is currently representing two clients whose cases are very similar to 303 Creative. Chelsea Nelson Photography versus Louisville Jefferson County Metro Government, and also Emily Carpenter Photography versus James. Tell us a little bit about those cases and how Lori Smith's case directly impacts them both.
Absolutely. Well, they're very similar cases, except these other cases you mentioned involve wedding photographers rather than a wedding website designer. But really, the principles are the exact same. In all these situations, both Chelsea and Emily serve all people regardless of who they are. There's just some messages they can't create for anyone. And so that's why it lines up exactly like the 303 Creative decision. And we're simply going to court and saying, these cases are over. 303 decided these cases and set the rules. And it just goes to show how important this 303 creative decision is. It's really protecting Americans right now, all across the country, from officials who are just seeking to silence them. They're seeking to coerce their conscience. So it really is a great victory that we're looking to bring forward all across the country to protect Americans.
Yeah, and what is the status of these cases right now, and what do you expect to happen?
Absolutely. In the Emily Carpenter case, that's before the Second Circuit Court of Appeals, which is in New York. We're waiting for a decision for that court. And then in Chelsea Nelson, that is before the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, which is based in Cincinnati. We actually have oral argument scheduled for next week at the end of July. And that'll be really one of our first opportunities to go into court and to make these arguments to say 303 is decisive. It should end this case. It should protect these people from government infringing their First Amendment freedoms.
And I'm curious, what kind of pushback did these women get for, kind of standing their ground when it comes to the First Amendment?
I mean, unfortunately, they are receiving threats and unfortunate attacks via email. Standing up for your freedoms sometimes is not popular, but they've also received a lot of positive feedback too. And that's a great thing, because I think people understand, right? If we want freedom for ourselves, we've got to extend it to others. That includes those who we disagree with, whether it be about marriage or other topics. Again, we should be protecting not just Chelsea and Emily and Lori Smith, but we should be protecting the LGBT photographer, the atheist who doesn't want to be forced by their government to promote religion. The First Amendment and freedom of speech are big enough to protect all these speakers. And that's because the First Amendment protects the individual's right to choose what to say. It doesn't allow the government to come in and mandate particular orthodoxies.
We're going to continue to follow those cases. And on a different note, I know there is an independent pharmacy in North Dakota owned by Kevin Martian, a devout Catholic who operates his business in accordance with his Catholic faith and beliefs. Tell us about this case, and also what's at stake here, Jonathan?
Sure. Well, I mean, 303 Creative involved speech. It didn't necessarily extend to free exercise of religion, but there are a lot of cases on that point too, the importance of free exercise, that really people should be able to enter into the business and operate consistent with their beliefs. That's also a fundamental freedom. So ADF looks to protect both the right of free speech and the right of free exercise. And we've done that successfully on behalf of not just web designers, but also those in the medical field. Again, there's a way that people can operate consistent with their religious beliefs, their freedom of expression, and also comply with the Constitution, with other laws. There's a way to do that. And we're thankful that, we've been successful in these court cases so far.
Well, Jonathan, thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate it. God bless you.
Thank you so much.
Up next on EWTN News Nightly, a trial of perseverance. An Armenian bishop shares the hardships Christians face in the wake of a major blockade. Plus, we are weeks away from World Youth Day, how Lisbon is preparing. Welcome back. The Azerbaijani blockade of Nagorno-Karabakh is now in its 7th month, and experts are growing increasingly fearful for the Christian-majority Armenian enclave. Despite repeated calls for humanitarian assistance, Azerbaijan refuses to lift its blockade because it believes that Armenia has been using the region to smuggle weapons within its border. And here now to give us more insight into this troubling situation is Bishop Mikhail Meredin, who leads the Armenian Catholic Church in the United States and Canada. Your Excellency, thank you so much for coming on today. We really appreciate it. I understand you just came back from Armenia. Can you give us an update on the situation there, and what's the latest?
Thank you very much for having me today. Unfortunately, things are not changed. The same blockade is continuing. As you said, this is the 7th month already. It started in December 2022, and it began with the pretext of an ecological protest against mining works that were going over there. Then in April 23, it changed to a military blockade of the sole road that connects Nagorno-Karabakh with the outside world. And unfortunately, just 10 days ago, the Azerbaijani government declared that not even the Red Cross can pass through the blockade to bring the necessary medication for the sick people that are there. You have to take into consideration that there are 120,000 Armenians who are living this misfortune, and among them, 30,000 are children who cannot go to school. They don't have gas, they don't have water, they don't have electricity. And with this hot summer over there, the blockade is complete, food is not arriving over there. It's completely disaster.
The country of Armenia, Your Excellency, we know is the first Christian nation, and this enclave is 90% Christian, but situated inside of a country that's over 96% Muslim. I'm curious, some may wonder if this is ethnic or religious genocide sort of in disguise. What would you say to that?
I think this is the continuation of the Armenian genocide of 1915 that was perpetrated by the Ottoman empires. Back in that time, there were almost 3 million Armenians living in the Ottoman Empire, especially in the Caucasus region. 50% of these Armenians were massacred, and the remaining were scattered all over the world. That's why we have a big Armenian diaspora all over the world. And the situation was that Nagorno-Karabakh was not under the control of that genocide, but in 1920, Stalin put it as an enclave in the Azerbaijan country. But Azerbaijan was created just in 1921. There was no this Azerbaijan before. So when the Soviet Union collapsed, these Armenians who were living in Nagorno-Karabakh declared their independence. And unfortunately, 4-year war was waged against them from Azerbaijan, but the Armenians couldn't control the region back in that time. And during the last decades, Azerbaijan, with its succeeding flush of money from the natural gas that they have, they grow their military, and backed by Turkey in 2020, during the COVID period, they attacked Nagorno-Karabakh, even Armenia, and the consequence of that was that almost 150,000 Armenians were obliged to flee their houses to go to Armenia, and these 120,000 remained over there, and now they are under blockade. And imagine, back in 2020, after Turkey and Azerbaijan attacked Nagorno-Karabakh, the president of Turkey, Erdogan, boasted, saying that this is the fulfillment of the mission of our grandfathers in the Caucasus. So they have still the same mentality of eradicating the presence of the Armenians, Christian Armenians in that region. And as you said, Armenia is the unique country that is Christian, surrounded by these 3 big Muslim countries that are trying to eradicate this country completely.
Well, Your Excellency, it is a very concerning situation over there. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us and fill us in on this. We are very, very grateful for your time. God bless you.
Thank you. God bless you too.
Pope Francis says seniors represent the transmission of faith from age to age, and he will celebrate the World Day of Grandparents and the Elderly during a special Mass on Sunday. At the end of the ceremony, 5 seniors will symbolically pass their faith to the next generation by handing over a pilgrim's cross to 5 young people who plan to attend World Youth Day. Meantime, people in Lisbon, Portugal are getting ready to host World Youth Day. The event begins August 1st. Tourists are already packing the Portuguese Italy's capital enjoying the sunny and warm days of summer. Pope Francis will be the keynote speaker at next month's event. We thank you for watching tonight. And remember, you can follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at EWTN News Nightly. I'm Tracy Sabol. Good night and God bless.